your host, the ConKaiserdor, and old school Avis Hathaway. Pin me, pay me, do your job. 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 Look, Miami Heat, white high, going for the ring. Why not? But what we coming for? The top spot. Got the focus on, we're not stop. So let the haters hate. So let the haters hate. So let the haters hate. So let the haters hate.
Welcome to the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour. I am the ConKaiserdor. Alongside me is old school Avis Hathaway. We got a great show for you tonight, everybody. Top it all off. My Miami Heat beat the Boston Celtics in the first game of the second round of the playoffs. So big ups to the Miami Heat. And, man, we got a great show tonight otherwise. We got former WCW superstar Glacier on the show tonight. Should be awesome. Very excited about that. And all kinds of great wrestling news to get into. So great hour plus of wrestling talk and everything else in between. So it's going to be a great show tonight. Old school man, you want to kick us off with some of the latest and the greatest headlines, bud?
Sure, bud. Well, I mean, I guess we've been off for a little while, so I think we'd be remiss to not start off with quick little bit of talk about the draft. WWE having its annual draft last week, and some big names, some big moves. John Cena moving brands, of course, to come right back by the end of the show. I kind of saw that one coming. But I think they made some good moves. I think moving Orton to SmackDown was good. You needed that top heel over there, or excuse me, top babyface, I should say, with Edge leaving. A lot of mid-card guys being shifted, Swagger, Sheamus, and then even lower card guys like Tyson Kidd and things like that. So I thought it was a pretty entertaining draft, and I thought they made some good moves. What about you?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good overall. I know when Cena initially was going to SmackDown, that would be really short-lived. I just couldn't see them putting Cena on SmackDown. It didn't make any sense. So when he came back over to Raw, I thought that was a good move. So overall, I thought it was pretty good. Thought it was a pretty good draft, kind of mixed things up a little bit there. So all in all, I thought it was pretty smooth. However, I don't know what this means for Christian and how they're going to continue to utilize him now with Orton moving to SmackDown.
Well, that was one of the things I said. With Orton moving over there, I think that pretty much spells the end of Christian in a main event role. Real quick, I wanted to touch on Cena. It was kind of telegraphed that he'd be going back to Raw just by the fact that if they're going to be feuding with The Rock building up to next year's WrestleMania, they're not going to do that on SmackDown. So you knew he was coming back to Raw. But moving on, I kind of feel bad for Christian because I really wanted to see them kind of give him the ball and let him try to run with it. Because, I know both you and I are both big Christian fans, and I certainly think he has the talent, the charisma, and he's over enough to really carry that main event face slot. But I think with the addition of Orton to the roster, Christian may get, his moment in the sun here and there, but I think they're going to, right away start to build into a feud with Orton and whoever the top heel may be that they're going with since they did move Alberto Del Rio to Raw. The other thing they could do is they could flip Orton back to a heel, which I think they should do, but, I'm not sure that they will because he's pretty over with the fans.
Right. And speaking of which, guy, Extreme Rules pay-per-view is going on as we speak, and Randall Orton did beat CM Punk guy. Apparently he laid Punk out, and kind of makes sense what's going on with Punk right now. You want to tell our fans about what's going on with Mr. CM Punk?
Yeah, CM Punk, and it's unfortunate because I think CM Punk is one of the best assets that company has right now. There's a lot of talk that he may be leaving the company. He refused to sign, his contract's coming due, and he refused to sign an extension. So he may be leaving. We don't know yet, but I think we're going to be joined by Glacier here, so that's something we can get into maybe a little bit later.
Welcome back to the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour on blogtalkradio.com. We are live on the air with Ray Glacier Lloyd, formerly of WCW. What's going on tonight, Ray?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We've been looking forward to having you on the show. It's a pleasure to have you on, man. So what have you been up to?
Man, I tell you what, I'm staying pretty busy these days. Where do I start? I'm still doing a little bit of wrestling. I actually did a big charity benefit wrestling show up in Atlanta about 3 weeks ago, and I live in Orlando, Florida now, and still doing a good bit of acting. I actually just worked on a film. We shot it about a year or so ago called River of Darkness, which is out now. It's in the red box, and actually I just got the notice that it's actually on Netflix, I think, starting about a week ago. And it's a film it stars Kurt Angle, and it's got really good appearance by Kevin Nash and Sid Vicious. So yeah, it's I actually play Kurt's kind of rival in the film, even though there's not really a big showdown as far as a fight or anything, but it's kind of a horror movie, with a little bit of a kind of a backstory between my character and his character that kind of plays out throughout the course of the film. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'd never actually even met Kurt until we worked on this film together and got a chance to work with him, get to know him, and it was a really great experience. So, hopefully, and I'm actually in discussions with the director to possibly maybe do another film here in the near future that he might be working on that'll be starring Kurt as well.
That's awesome, man. I did see a lot of the cast, and it does include a lot of wrestling talent, as well as someone that I got to meet at a HorrorCon twice, Bill Heinzman, who's also in that film. He was the opening zombie in Night of the Living Dead. What was it like working with him?
You know what? Actually, as the way the movies are shot, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to work with Bill any while I was up there, even though I was there for a while. But yeah, I'll tell you what, he's done a great job of that one role really kind of I don't know if you say defining his career, but I tell you, really taking that and getting all the mileage you can out of it, which is awesome because, a role like that, yeah, it's kind of a groundbreaking film, and kind of really set the tone for the over-the-top horror films, that came after it. And, it was, he was in it, and, what was the other gentleman's name that was in the Mothman Prophecies? I forget his name, but he played the other member of the family with Kevin Nash and Sid Vicious, but yeah, it was great. I got a chance to work up there during the summer. We shot during the summer in Pittsburgh, which is a beautiful time to be up in Pittsburgh, and of course we shot a lot on the river and just a lot of really nice backdrops, and I think we were able to really be privy to some locations that we might not have been able to shoot just simply because of Kurt and his name and his reputation up there. He's kind of one of Pittsburgh's favorite sons, so to speak, and and he's got a great relationship with a lot of people up there, so we were able to have access to some areas that, like I said, we might not have been able to without him, and those connections. So yeah, I think overall it was a great experience. I really loved working, like I said, working with Kurt and the other guys. And ironically, the way we shot the scenes, even in the end of the film, where all of us actually are in the scenes together, we actually shot those scenes separately. So I actually didn't work any of the same day that Kevin Nash and Sid Vicious worked, but the movie magic that they can do these days as far as editing. It appears that we're all in the finale of it together, so it's kind of cool.
Right. That's pretty awesome. I also noticed from looking at some of the cast that I'm not sure how big of a horror fan you are, but old school Avis Hathaway and I are pretty big horror movie fans. We've been to a few horror cons, and Clayton Hill and Sharon Sassetti from Dawn of the Dead. Sharon played the nurse zombie, and Clayton played the escalator zombie. Were you on camera with them at all during? I know they're also from Pittsburgh. Were you on camera with them at all, or any interaction with them?
You know what? I'm trying to think. Gosh, can you refresh my memory? What roles do they play in this one?
Clayton was the Oracle, and Sharon was waitress Sharon Hill.
Yeah, I did. I worked with, I guess it was maybe with Sharon in the diner scene, because my character is actually plays the owner of the diner, and where I think she's a waitress in, and so yeah, I actually didn't know that she had that type of role, so it's kind of cool finding that out. So, but yeah, and that's kind of how our story plays out in the film, is that these strange murders start happening in this small town, and Kurt's the small town sheriff, and I'm the local diner owner who lost the sheriff's race to Kurt's character, and so once he can't, Kurt's character can't figure out what's going on in this town and how these murders are happening, then I slowly kind of start to try to turn the town against him, and saying, hey, look, he's not doing his job. This is why he shouldn't have won the sheriff's race, and then what's this guy doing, to help our community, blah blah blah. Kind of building up the tension and the like I said, the conflict and kind of the standoff at the end of the film, which has kind of a nice little twist to it without giving too much away. But yeah, so and did you guys get a chance to watch it yet? I can't remember if through our emails if you guys got a chance to see it.
I have not had a chance to see it. Will.
Yeah, it's a film that it's gotten some mixed reviews, and but it was a lot of fun to do, and it was shot on a limited budget, which a lot of horror films are, but I think some of the some of the campiness of it is kind of what makes it appealing. It's just like there's a lot of horror movie, and I don't know if you guys seen a lot of the stuff that I tell you who I thought I was really impressed with. It was a guy who I think I know he does a lot of indie horror film stuff. Is Alan Rowe Kelly. Played actually who Alan Rowe Kelly's I guess a very very famous transvestite, but plays kind of the town crazy lady in the movie, and it actually was. I thought he did an excellent job. But he's done a lot of the indie horror films, and it was I've shown my screening copy to a couple of people, and he does quite a good job as playing the crazy lady in the film. Most people don't know it's a guy dressed up playing a lady, so
right.
He's very convincing.
I also know that you were in an episode of one of USA's most prominent show right now, Burn Notice. You actually were in one of the episodes. Can you talk about being on Burn Notice and how that experience was?
Yeah, I'd say, I guess, to kind of give people a little bit of a background. Obviously, I've had such an unbelievable, career in wrestling. I mean, actually, I broke in April of '87, so, this past month made 24 years in the wrestling business for me, and it's really, taken me on a very wild ride, most of it enjoyable, and but I've always studied acting professionally, actually, even before breaking into WCW, and then of course I didn't really do any during that period because our schedule was so crazy. But about the time about '01 when things wrapped up at WCW, I started really studying more seriously again, and I really have taken it to heart to be one of those guys from the wrestling business who can go out and do not your traditional campy roles that wrestlers tend to get put in, and I really tried to be a very serious actor and get some good work. And I've got an agency in Atlanta that represents me, and I've got one in Miami, and yeah, I ended up doing the audition for the season finale of season 1 of Burn Notice, and that is actually shot as 2 one-hour episodes that was supposed to be continued, but when it came to the end of the season, they actually just ran the 2 hours together as one season finale, the two-hour episodes. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Bruce Campbell, which I'm sure you guys obviously know who Bruce Campbell is. Way before Burn Notice came along, but and so it was really cool to work with Bruce Campbell, and because I'm just, like I said, just a huge fan of his, and of course I didn't tell him that till the end of the shoot because I didn't want to come across as some crazy fan, But yeah, I got a chance to work with Johnny Mesner, who played my boss, who is a phenomenal actor. He's done a lot of great work. Probably best known for his role in Tears of the Sun with Bruce Willis, where he played one of the Navy SEAL characters in that. But yeah, it was a chance to work with those guys. It was a really good role. Played out through the whole episode to where Michael, the main character, rescues Sam on the boat, and Fiona, I get in a shootout with Fiona, and then as they're running off the boat. It was actually probably one of the scenes they play the most in the highlights is, as they're running off the boat explodes, and supposedly my character dies, but they had told to me that they actually left it slightly open so that you don't, even the way the explosion goes off and the characters kind of get blown out of frame, you don't really know for sure if they did, if they were actually were done in or if they could be brought back. So I know that was one of the possibilities, but they haven't called me to come back and reprise that role just yet. So, but if not, it was a great experience. It really was.
Yeah, I actually enjoy that show quite a bit, and I've seen that episode, and it's a really good show, Burn Notice. Now, I do want to kind of talk to you a little bit now, ask a question. I know in your background, if I'm not mistaken, you had a karate upbringing, and you, if I'm not mistaken, you were a WKA champion. I actually grew up in karate myself, so I just want to have you talk a little bit about that and how that kind of, you went from that into transitioning into wrestling and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I tell you, like most people, I was around 14 years old, and I saw my first Bruce Lee film, and I thought, man, I want to learn how to do all that stuff, and so my dad was in law enforcement, and so of course, I sought his advice on it, and then he actually hooked me up with these two instructors. These were Bob Natsky and Frank Graves, who actually were both working, because where I grew up in Brunswick, Georgia, they have what's called a Federal Law Enforcement Training Center there, which is like where people come from all over the world to train there in law enforcement tactics and stuff. And so, and a lot of former government people, and so Bob was actually head of all the physical training for the U.S. Marshal Service that trained there, and then Frank was a former federal agent. And so, but they actually had a small little school where they only took a certain number of students, but they actually taught a style of kung fu. And I had never even really heard of what that was, So and really, honestly, that was the reason why I ended up studying that style. Was not so much I picked it out; it was kind of like it kind of picked me, And but I tell you what, it really helped me throughout the years because I played high school football and college football, and it really taught me not to rely on my size and strength, and to be able to just redirect. Force away from all the stuff that you hear martial artists saying, but and it's been a big part of my life ever since. And my two instructors are still like father figures to me to this day. They're still just tremendous guys, and I learned so much more than just martial arts from them. I've learned a lot of life lessons from them. They're two of the guys that I really look to when I need some big answer to some big life's big problem or question that I can't solve on my own. I still try to seek their advice on it. So, but and from that, when I went to college, I actually began fighting. I met up with some guys, and when I was in college, they actually were already competing in the World Karate Association, and I wanted something to kind of do in the off season to keep in shape, and so I started doing that, and I actually eventually ended up winning the WKA Southeastern Super Heavyweight title, and that was a huge deal back then, and still to this day I'm really proud of that. And actually would have probably continued fighting a little bit longer, but there was a point where they changed the rules to where the kicks are going to be from the knee up as opposed to the waist up. And I was going into my senior year of college, and I just they were paying for me to go to school, so I didn't really take a chance on my banging my knee up any more than I already was. So I stepped away from it at that point. But it was a great experience. It really was, because and the reason why I did it is because there was that part of me that said, you know what, I've done all this technique and all this stuff, but I need to know if I can really take a hit, and can I really, what kind of power do I have in my hands and feet, And of course, in that, I was able to kind of find that out, and and I kind of felt like I could hold my own, but I really needed to know, okay, can I, I think I can take a good shot, but can I really? So, and I found out real quick that, I can take a pretty good shot, but, man, they sting, so I didn't want to keep taking those forever. so, yeah, that's kind of how that all came about.
I know you did some work with Southern Championship Wrestling in Georgia before your days in WCW. If you would talk a little bit about that and kind of the training you received there, and then how that kind of led you into, the Glacier character and kind of becoming the name that you were and the character that you were on WCW, because, I know they spent a lot of time and invested a lot into building the Glacier character up when you debuted. Can you kind of take us from the beginning into getting to that point a little bit?
Yeah, I actually was so fortunate. I mean, I was just in so much in the right place at the right time during my career, and I was really lucky to come in in the late '80s when the territories were kind of dying out, but still there's a little bit of it left where I really got to experience that a little bit, and of course one of the last territories really that really came to be was Southern Championship Wrestling, which was Jerry Blackwell's group, and I was just so blessed to be in there. I mean, Tommy Rich, who really has done a lot, especially early on in my career, to help me. There's people that say things about Tommy good and bad, but for the most part, he really did a lot to help me. And here I come, a year into the business, I'm going to work for these guys, and I'm walking in the locker room, and there's I got a chance to know Bruiser Brody right before his what happened with him, and Abdul the Butcher, Bullet Bob Armstrong, Paul Lee was there, of course, like I said, Tommy Rich, let's see, Terry Taylor had come in, it was just name after name after name were coming into this organization. I was just like, holy cow, and then they actually teamed me up with a kid, another young kid, and we actually we were doing a big tag team tournament. It was a 2-night tag team tournament in the Macon Coliseum, which is still a pretty big arena, and we were basically allowed to kind of progress through this tournament, and I'll never forget that we the match we had where we actually got eliminated, we actually had to go up against Dick Slater and Bob Orton Jr. And man, I mean, let me tell you, even talking about being scared to death. I mean, here I am, a little over a year into the business, and I'm still not sure I really know, a headlock from a padlock at that point, and so I'm we get in there and we in this big arena, and we're facing off with two guys, legendary wrestlers, and thank goodness we didn't totally embarrass ourselves when we got through it, and the funny thing is, I actually was at the Hall of Fame induction thing here, about a month or so ago, in Atlanta, and I got a chance to run into Bob Orton Jr., talk to him, and kind of remind him of that, and he was nice enough to act like he remembered it. I'm sure he didn't, but it was really cool seeing him after all these years and kind of remembering back that moment where I was kind of scared to death to go in the match against him. But and I was able to move to Atlanta in 1990 to really get serious about pursuing my dream of becoming a wrestler at that top level, and then went to Japan and wrestled several years over there with UWFI, which is where I really got to be close to Lou Thesz, and anybody in the wrestling business. If you have any knowledge of the wrestling business, you certainly should know who Lou Thesz is. And
sure.
And then I became really good friends with Diamond Dallas Page, and we were working out and stuff together. And then and actually I kept it pretty quiet about the martial arts stuff. It just wasn't something that I really, because it was just something you typically didn't really blend in with wrestling, especially as kind of a girl, your boy next door, All-American look guy. I'm not the guy that typically when people would see who does the martial arts. I mean, we all know from from wrestling, it was always seemed to be someone who had more the Japanese look or Chinese look or something. They would be doing the Oriental stuff, the martial arts stuff, not me. And so I told Paige about it. I said, think about incorporating some of that in my wrestling. And he goes, well, that'd be great if you knew some of that stuff. And I was like, Paige, I do. I said, I don't tell a lot of people. I've kind of trained in it for like half my life. And he was like, well, Bischoff's into all that stuff. And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And he was like, yeah. And so he took some information, and he was like, let me throw this by Eric and see what he says. And he told Eric, and Eric wanted to meet with me. So right around he said, this is during the holidays. He said, let's get through the holidays, and we'll meet. And so it was like that first week of January, I ended up going to this little local restaurant out close to where Paige and Eric lived at the time, and I sit down, have dinner, just me and him, and long story short, I mean, we ended up having, it was almost a 3-hour dinner, and it was pretty much him interviewing me, and at the end of it, I'll never forget, he says, are you still wrestling on the independent wrestling scene? And I thought, yeah, I am. And he said, well, I want to offer you a contract, and I want to pay you to disappear off the independent wrestling scene. And I was like, yeah, okay, I can do that. So that's what happened. I actually had a full-time job, really nice full-time job, and I was wrestling on the weekends. And he said, you don't even have to quit your full-time job yet. I just want to sign you, lock you in, and then we'll go forward from there. And of course, from there, they hired Andre Friedez, who was who was a special effects artist with AFX Studios in Atlanta, and he started the process of creating, what would later become, Glacier. And so, and it was a long, lengthy process to come up with all that, but it really was very much an extension of who I was. I mean, that's how I was able to. And I think any wrestler, once that has a successful gimmick, the only way you can have a successful gimmick, or one of the main things you got to have, is you got to be comfortable with what you're doing out there. And I remember Arn Anderson told me a long time ago that the most successful gimmicks in wrestling don't fall too far from who the person really is. And he would always use Flair as a natural example of that. And so I knew that too from being mentored by Dusty, Dusty Rhodes, and really Dusty's not. Dusty Rhodes is Dusty Rhodes all, every hour of the day. It's just like Flair when he's in the ring. It's Dusty Rhodes with the volume turned up, and so that's kind of what I did with Glacier. I kind of basically took, all these things, that I felt were things that would work for me, I'd be comfortable doing, and I put it into to Glacier. And so when I got to the point where I was so comfortable with it that I could, snap it, out of being Ray Lloyd and into Glacier in 1 second, I could do it. And I still can, but that was a lot of work and development for that to happen. But so that's kind of a brief history of how it happened.
And it was kind of like a real-life character, whether or not this is what you were going for, but it was like a real come-to-life character of Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat. Had you seen the Sub-Zero character prior to getting into the Glacier role, or how did it come about? Because, obviously there are very close resemblance between Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat and the Glacier character. So can you talk a little bit about if that had any influence on you kind of establishing that character?
Yeah, and I think you guys will agree. Wrestling has always been that spectacle of sorts, to where they basically, took advantage of what was popular in society,
Sure.
And so that's what was popular at that time. I remember that, Eric was telling me that basically, TBS was saying, hey, look, is there this Mortal Kombat video thing is really taken off. Of course, the first film had come out, and they're like, is there any way we could take this concept and bring it into a wrestling ring? And so basically they pitched that kind of, whoever the powers that be pitched that to Eric, and Eric said, okay, well, I'll see what we can come up with. And so, and from what I've been told, he'd been looking for a while and hadn't really found the first guy he felt like was a good fit. And I think for whatever reason, when he and I talked, he felt like I could be that guy. We could get a good fit for it. And so I was brought on board, and then shortly after, obviously, Chris Kanyon was, and then Brian Clark as Wrath, and then Ernest Miller. And, of course, Ernest was a good friend of Eric's because he had been teaching Eric's kids martial arts. So that's kind of how we all four got grouped into it. And yeah, I personally, I never really had watched a lot of it. So of course, I immediately started doing my research on it, and that's kind of what's my thing was I naturally gravitated to the Sub-Zero character just because it reminded me a lot of the movements and stuff were a lot of like the kung fu type stuff I did. So I was like, okay, and I, the blue and silver always seemed like just a kind of color thing that worked for me, and it was kind of like, even though I was always a big fan of Captain America growing up, and it seemed to me it had to have a little bit of the Captain America flair to it, even though, just like a hint of it. So I thought, well, that I can kind of take that. Let's go with that, and I give a lot of credit to Andre of AFX because he was able to take my image in my head and kind of put it to bring it to life, so to speak. And and then of course, like I said, I had some just tremendously talented guys to work with. Chris Kanyon, God bless his soul. He's been gone about a year now. But we just, we clicked in the ring unlike anybody I've ever wrestled with in my entire career, and so that helped a lot. And we were all very dedicated. We really, really took it very serious, and we were like, you know what, we're going to make this. We'll make this work, and we'll go down, swinging to make sure that we do everything we can, and we did. We took it very, very seriously, and even to the point where I remember that we used to actually go. Chris came up with this idea. We would actually go to the arcades, and we would watch kids play the video games just to kind of see what they reacted to, and actually, kind of believe it or not, pick up moves from watching the video games. I was like, no, I can't do that. I know, but maybe I might be able to do this. And and that's really how we came up with a lot of the concept. Because we saw what what kids reacted to. I remember one time, like, we gave these kids money and said, here, just play the game. Can we just observe? And I'm sure that looked a little freaky for these grown men to be standing in an arcade watching kids play the game. but we were able to kind of watch and say, okay, I can see what appeals, to people about this, and especially that younger audience. And so we try to take that and bring it into, bring it to life, and I really feel like we were very successful with it, because I remember Eric saying, I want you guys, it seems now that this is almost like, ho-hum, that everybody does hotline stuff now. But you think, this was 96, and this was right before Eric brought in all the luchadors and everything, and really before you really get the cruiserweight, category a real big push. So at that point, you basically were almost always dealing with the heavyweights and stuff like that. And Eric specifically said, I want you guys to be heavyweights that move like cruiserweights. And so that upped the game right there. That's what we were challenged with, and I really do to this day. I mean, I'll tell anybody. I mean, I think we did a heck of a job. We really did. If you go back and watch some of that stuff, and remember that was 15 years ago, when most big guys weren't doing a lot of high flying stuff. We really did kind of set the bar to a certain degree.
Right, absolutely. And I know during the prime of your career in WCW, you also got to work with Bill Goldberg. What was it like working with him?
First of all, let me say I think the world of Bill, and I'm so glad to see that he's had the success he's had. We were always good friends, and I don't talk to him as much as I would like to these days. I mean, he's doing this thing, I'm doing mine, but the thing that I've always told people about Bill is that, and I heard somebody say this one time, and it really is true, and I mean this as a total, I guess, compliment and an explanation, because people always ask me, how was it, with being in the ring with Bill? And I always tell people, when the lights went on, nobody believed Bill Goldberg more than Bill Goldberg. And what I mean by that is that look in his eye was real. I mean, and when he speared you, you just knew that you just better hold on, because there was just no easy way to take it. And he was a guy 290 pounds of muscle, running straight at you like a freight train. But I wrestled Bill 4 times on TV, 2 on Thunder, 2 on Nitro. We were main event on Nitro one time, and which was a big thrill for me, because I mean, as a kid, I grew up thinking, wow, this would be great to do this, and to get in there and become, just get to that one spot of being the main event. I mean, it was awesome, and Bill was kind of like learning as he went. I mean, no one ever really realized that he would catch on as quick as he did, with the fans, and all of a sudden it just exploded almost overnight, and so he was kind of like the Road Warriors. I mean, he was kind of learning out there in front of millions of people. And so he trusted me every time he went in the ring to lay out a good match, and I did, and I came every time I came up with a real creative way for him to go into the spear, and it was, but I tell you right now, it was very, very real every time we were out there, and that's another thing I always try to convey to people that are fans of wrestling. They always say, of course, we always hear the one thing, and it's still the most, by far the most asked question I always get is like, oh, is wrestling real or is it fake? And I always tell people, you know what? I always ask him, well, what do you think? But I always say, you know what? To me, it's very real, because I've always been a competitive athlete, and every time I go out there, it's a competition to me, because I want to be the match that people are talking about when they go home. I mean, to me, that's a competition. As much as I want everybody else to do good, I want to be the match that people are talking about. And hopefully talking good about it. But yeah, Bill was, he was very gracious in the fact that even, the last couple of times when he was just, on top of the world, I mean, he still listened to me, and we put things together, and it was my time to, like everybody else at that period, that, let him carry the torch, and so, I took a lot of pride in making sure we had a really, really solid match. But I was just watching some stuff the other day, and Dallas Page and I were talking a while back about, I was showing him some stuff, and he was saying, man, he goes, he still left his feet, like, probably for you more than he did anybody else. And I was like, yeah, he kind of did, And so, that was just the thing that Bill, he respected, kind of what I had done, and kind of what my gimmick was, and you know, and it meant a lot to me because everybody was in his ear saying, don't sell this, don't sell that, be a freight train, run through everybody. And, you know, and he was gracious enough to work with me on some things, you know. And I think it made our matches look that much more believable because, trust me, like I said, I mean, you know, when Bill hits you with just about anything, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, let me say, because, I mean, he's just a big, powerful guy. And big, powerful guys, when they hit you, you know, it's smarts, you know. And so, yeah, but I had nothing but great things to say about Bill. I think he's an awesome guy.
That's awesome, man. We're going to take just a quick little break here, but don't go anywhere. We are live right now with Ray Glacier Lloyd, formerly of WCW. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour on blogtalkradio.com/doyourjob.
This is the Rage Education of Lash LaRue, former WCW superstar, and you should do the job because I'm doing the job right here on the Do Your J.O.B. Job Wrestling Hour with a little less than that bone Rudy. Let the good times roll.
Welcome back to the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour on blogtalkradio.com/doyourjob. We are live tonight with Ray Glacier Lloyd, formerly of WCW. You can call into the show at 714-694-4101. Also jump into the chat room if you'd like. Got a few people in there right now. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us. You can chime in the chat or call in, whichever works there for you. So kind of get back to the show, Ray. Have you had any chances of working with Lash LaRue? We had him on the show a few weeks ago, whether in the power plant or on TV.
You know what? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lash is a good buddy of mine. I was just going to comment on that because, I mean, I just love that guy. I mean, he's such a great guy, and he really is, you know, I hope one day he puts his story down in print and publishes it because I think it's a story that most people would really be amazed to know. I mean, you know, this guy, you know, he lives over, I think it was on the other side of Birmingham, Alabama, and, you know, when he came to the power plant and was able to kind of get on board with the power plant and train, he drove every single day from Birmingham to Atlanta and back to train. And that's, you know, I mean, that's when he was making really no money. I mean, but that's how dedicated he was to getting that spot. And once again, you know, Paige, at that time, Paige was in a good spot to help a lot of guys, and Paige did help a lot of guys, including me. And, you know, Paige put in a good word for him, you know, and helped get him, you know, to that point where they gave him some time on TV, and of course he took the ball and ran with it. And yeah, I'm very proud to call Lash a good friend. He's a good man. He's a really good man.
Yeah, he was a great interview, really nice guy, one of our favorites that we've done so far in our short period that we've done our radio show, but definitely one of our favorite interviews. So kind of getting back to your career, I know that you are in the Orlando area. Have you done any work at all, any behind-the-scenes road agent work at all for TNA?
Yeah, actually, I was an agent for TNA back in 2005. Actually, Dusty Rhodes had come in and they put him in charge of the booking committee, and I was here in Orlando, and I was actually at the time doing the Indiana Jones stunt show out of Disney and playing the German mechanic, the bad guy, and I actually, I was doing that, and of course at that time, just like they do now, they come in every other week and tape. And so I had been Dusty's right-hand guy at Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling when he had that in Atlanta for about 3.5 years. And, so I moved down to Orlando, and Dusty was like, hey, look, would you like to come on board and be a part of this with me? And, I jumped at the chance, mainly to work with Dusty. But, I had a good history with Jeff Jarrett, and a lot of the guys here. Of course, Mike Tenay, who I just think is just one of the best guys in the wrestling business, period, at any level. And so guys like that, I got a chance. Terry Taylor. I mean, Terry's done a lot to help me throughout my career. I came on board as an agent for a while, and got a chance to work with Jerry Jarrett a lot, which was really a cool thing. I mean, the same thing. I know a lot of people say good and bad about Mr. Jarrett, but I got a chance to sit right down next to him when we'd start taping and the monitors, and really learn from a guy who's pretty much spent his whole life in the wrestling business and seen just about everything. And I was able to learn an awful lot from him, and of course Keith Mitchell, who was our producer at WCW, is the executive producer of that show, and so I really, it's one of those things where I learned so much about how to work behind the camera. I wish I would have known that when I was in WCW, when I was in front of the camera. I think it would have made me, much better at what I did, but we could all go back and change things that we, like that if we could. But it was a great experience. I mean, I really overall the only thing that to me that was I think makes it hard this day and age being an agent, talent agent, and I know the guys there now probably still have the same problem, is, you get guys who they want to go out there and they want to do their own thing, and especially with a show like TNA that was, they could it was taped, so they could go back and edit it, obviously outside of, the pay-per-view that was live, but, it was a lot of the guys there who, and I don't fault guys for this, I mean, it's just, it was a lot more relaxed atmosphere, and a lot of times as an agent, you get guys to try to do this and stay within certain parameters, and some guys would and some guys wouldn't. So it was a very frustrating, thing. And but overall, good experience. I learned an awful lot, and it came time for me to step away from it. I moved back to Atlanta for a while, actually to take a teaching position and a job as a head wrestling coach at one of the high schools in Atlanta. So I couldn't, obviously I had to step away from it. And but it was overall very good experience while I was there. Any chance I get a chance to work alongside Dusty, who's really, played a big part in my life and my career. So it was a great chance to be around him. And I got a chance to work with Keith Mitchell, who I just think is just one of the best in the business and is a good friend. So yeah, anytime you get a chance to work at that level and work with people you respect and like, it was an awesome opportunity. I learned a lot.
Good stuff. I got a question from the chat room here from one of our diehard listeners, Y2 Jibber Jabber. He wants to know if you can share with us one of your most favorite rib stories. And he's really, we've had some other wrestlers come on the show, share some stories where it was all right. Some people really get into some really good stuff. So if you can appease him, he's really one of our big followers. If you can kind of share with us one of your most favorite rib stories from your career.
I tell you what, there's certainly some stories I cannot share on the air, but
understandable.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? I think it's important to say that when you're on the road, 200 something days a year. You got to find ways to entertain yourself and each other, because if not, you go crazy, And so, and like most places, of employment, you kind of run around in your little group or your clique or whatever, and everybody does that no matter where you work, and ours was the same. And my group that I kind of ran around with was me, of course, Chris Kanyon, Billy Kidman, Sick Boy from the Flock, and Riggs and those guys, and Jericho. We all kind of, and on this night we were somewhere, up north, somewhere I want to say like in Michigan somewhere. And of course, it was during the winter. It was snowing. It was just unbelievable. And one of my dear friends in the wrestling business who lives here in Orlando now is Jim Mitchell, who at the time was James Vandenberg, who was managing Mortis and Wrath, and our big rivals. And Vandy's the kind of guy that he drinks his beer, he doesn't bother anybody, he just does his thing, and he's one of those guys that you could absolutely just rib him, and he still just wouldn't take it personal, And so we always were, whenever we were somehow thinking of a good rib, somehow it always seemed that Vandy would be the victim. So this one night, and he always had kind of the typical routine. He'd go back to the hotel, drink a few beers, and then go to bed, do his thing, and so on this night, we were out, and we closed. I can't say for sure. I think it was after a pay-per-view, so it was pretty late at night, and we were a little lit and bored, and so it was snowing outside and everything. We came back to the hotel, and we knew that Vandy had already gone to sleep, or we thought he had, and the light was off, and he was, he and Canyon were usually roommates on the road, and like me and Kidman we would usually room together, just to split expenses. You do all that every time, so. Canyon obviously had the room key. So we came up with this great idea and kind of our stupor there that we would all get snowballs. And we'd get these big snowballs, and we'd all go in, and we'd surround the bed where Vandy was. The lights would be off. There's one light way over there, like in the vanity or by the sink of the zone, so it's just a little light. And Canyon was stood back by the door with it. There was one overhanging light by this little table, and he was kind of whispering, okay, on three, I'll count to three, and I'll cut the light on, and then once the light comes on, he wakes up, we'll all just bombard him with the, snowballs. And so, once again, it sounded like such a great plan at the time. So we get there, and we're all set, and all of a sudden he goes, 1, 2, 3, turn turns the light on, and we all go, Of course, for whatever reason, the lamp was not plugged in, so the light did not come on. And so you can imagine if any of us would have been asleep, and all of a sudden you hear a bunch of crazy people screaming at you, and all of a sudden you get hit with something that you're not sure what the hell it is. So we had like volleyball-sized snowballs, too. It weren't just your regular. And we just pounded him. I mean, he jumps up out of the bed, turns the light on right next to him. He had like 3 beer bottles there. He's throwing the beer bottles at us. And he throws the phone, which comes out of the wall, and all of a sudden he lands. And of course, at that time he had his long hair, and all of a sudden he's like the Tasmanian devil. He hits the ground. He's like, We're all sitting there. We all just hit the floor laughing, dying laughing, and all of a sudden he's standing there, and he's always got on like his boxer shorts, and all of a sudden he realizes what happened. And in typical Vandy fashion, he just looks at all of us, and we're all dying, laughing, rolling around. He just looks at us, and he walks off to the bathroom. He just goes, you guys go at yourself. Just comes back, flips the sheets, knocks all the ice and shoots you off into the floor, and goes right back to bed. That's a very G-rated rip story, but it's one that's still one of my favorites. So,
that's a good story. Now, you touched briefly before on Turnbuckle Championship, and I wanted to kind of bring that up a little bit because that was a good promotion that I know Dusty had a big hand in, and you did, and had some big names in it. Barry Windham, Scotty Riggs, I know was in there for a while. I just want to kind of talk about that promotion a little bit because I know it didn't last terribly long, but that was a very good promotion. It had some big names and did some good shows. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on your time there. I know you. In fact, I might be mistaken, but I believe you were the heavyweight champion for Turnbuckle for a while. Just kind of get your take on it, on that promotion itself, and kind of putting that up against WCW, that sort of thing.
Yeah, he actually, Dusty left WCW. I think it was at 2000, and started Turnbuckle. And there was a period where I got cut loose, and then eventually I got brought back, but before we actually, folded. But and I remember I was driving down the road. Of course, Dusty and Paige were real tight, and ironically, even when I worked all those years in WCW, my 2 childhood heroes were Evel Knievel and Dusty Rhodes. So, but ironically, I didn't get a chance to really get close to Dusty when I would work in WCW. We just never seemed to be. He was doing in another department, but I just never seemed to got a chance to get to know him. And so one day, I'm driving, and I'll never forget, pull up in my driveway, and my phone rings, and I answer it, and it's Dusty on the other end, and he always, to this day, calls me Raymond. He's like, Raymond, he said, starting my own promotion. He said, they said, I need to talk to you about maybe coming on board. And I was like, yeah, sure, And so he goes, be in my office, blah, 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 we'll talk about it. So he told me where to go. I met him, and he basically said, hey, look, I need somebody who I can kind of look at as my right-hand guy that I can trust and that can help me build this thing. And, we're both in a position right now to where we're not with WCW, and what do you think? And I was like, heck yeah, I get a chance to work with you. Yeah, I'll do that, And so I did, and he opened up a wrestling school there, and he had a really nice office area. He actually, even though it was one level, he called it Turnbuckle Towers, which I thought was really kind of funny. But lo and behold, here I am working with my childhood hero, and it was great. I mean, it was hard. I mean, it was tough because it was like trying to start any promotion, and especially right there in Atlanta where, you're right underneath, WCW being basically right down the road. And but Dusty used his name value, and he pulled some strings to get some good cards early on. And of course, like he had guys like Barry come in, and Manny Fernandez, and Zabisco, and DiBiase came in and did some stuff, promotional stuff, and and that was one of the cool things about having the office. You never knew who was going to stop by. Like I was there one day, and Abdullah the Butcher stopped by, and he's just like, I didn't know whether to shake his hand or run out the back door, And but yeah, it was a great promotion. As guys were getting kind of not having their contracts renewed from WCW, every single one of them, it seemed like, were coming to work for Dusty. And then once the doors closed for WCW completely, we picked up a few other people, and it had good momentum for a while. It was, but like anything else, I mean, it was incredibly expensive to try to run a promotion like that, and and Dusty used a lot of favors that he had called in a lot of favors that he needed to over the years, and then it was just and we did good for a while, but then it kind of started to falter, and you know, and there's, I could go into all the reasons why I felt like that, but that's not really important. It's just that, you know, we came together as a unit and a family, and we all believed in Dusty, and we all stayed with Dusty even when it was kind of, you know, kind of lean times, you know, near the end. We all stayed on board and said, you know, hey, look, if it's not gonna work, you know, we're gonna ride it out with you, and we'll be there till the end, and we were, you know, I mean, I was there till the end with him, and then I can't remember specifically if there was a lull in time or not, but I know that not long after, you know, and as far as I know, Dusty still has never really officially done away with Turnbuckle. I mean, he just basically, you know, still has the brand and the name and all that, but he obviously went to work for WWE to help develop their talent and stuff, and that's something that no one could blame him. I mean, it was, you know, it's a steady gig with a good paycheck, and you know, and he's helping the next level of superstars, you know, so you know, it's like anything. Running your own business can be a huge headache, and you know, Dusty did a great job with it. I think we all did, but I think it definitely wore us all down too, you know. And but you know, we loved what we were doing, so we gladly moved forward with it as long as we could. And then, you know, you got to be smart enough to realize there's time when you got to change directions and do something different. And we all realized that, and we all, you know, went our separate ways. But I tell you what, it was a great, like, 3.5-year period. It really was. I mean, just to be able to learn under Dusty and just pick his brain all the time was just great. It really was.
Very cool, very cool. You are listening to the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour on Blog Talk Radio. Want to give a quick shout-out to the ConKaiserdor's brother, Ricky. He's listening for the first time. He's a big fan of Glacier, so we just want to acknowledge him. Thanks for listening. Now,
hello, Ricky.
There you go.
Now, he is a Glacier mark, by the way.
Yes,
awesome.
Now we have another question from the chat room. I wanted to ask you, Ray. A question again actually comes from Y2 Jibber Jabber. He's getting involved here. He wanted to know if you ever had any offers or ever had any desire to work in WWE.
Actually, I did. You know, and I'll tell part of the story. Part of the story I'll leave out just because. When they get there, I'll kind of tell you. But you know, I actually sent some material there to have them take a look at it, and they got back in touch with me, Kevin Kelly, actually, when he was with WWE, and yeah, they actually, you know, they came back with an idea where they wanted me to actually do a state trooper gimmick because of my family's history with state patrol and law enforcement and all that, and you know, I sought the advice from some people that I really trusted in the business, and it just didn't seem like a risk I was willing to take at that time because my dad's legacy in law enforcement was something that means a lot to our family, and I didn't want to really take a chance on bringing that to wrestling and seeing it maybe not work out like I thought it might, you know, or hoped it might, you know, and that's not pointing the finger at anybody specifically at WWE or anybody. It's just that I probably wouldn't have allowed WCW to develop me that way, you know. I just felt like that was something that was a little bit too personal, and even though I do feel like I could have done that. Great, I really do. Especially after even the brief run as a Buzz Stern, which I love doing. It proved to me I could do something totally different than Glacier and make it believable and the people buy it. But yeah, that was one of those. And what happened was the second part of that story, which I guess I will tell, is because it's not anything bad. It's just that that was when Dusty was starting up, and I was basically faced with the decision: do I go for this, you know, this offer? That was a decent offer. It wasn't a great offer because at that time WWE didn't have to offer us anything. You know, you roll decent stuff. I mean, they just bought us out. So most of the guys they could get for far less than they needed to pay them. And I had the option to go and take what they were offering and take a chance on them really, you know, not doing my dad's legacy justice, so to speak, or go to work for Dusty and my childhood hero and learn from him. And even though I knew it wouldn't be near the money or near the exposure, that's where my heart led me to go. And so, you know, I always had that goal to have wrestled in both companies before it was over and done with. But you know what? I mean, in the end, if going and working with Dusty, learning from him, and becoming his right-hand guy for 3.5 years is the reason I didn't go to WWE, then I always feel like I made the right decision. You know, I'll go to my grave feeling I made the right decision. There is a bit of a part of me that wishes I would have been able to experience the life at WWE, just because, let's face it, I mean, you know, they're the top dog, you know, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else, and they still do it big. And you know, there's a lot of negative and positive and pros and cons you can say about it, but we don't always get everything we want, and that was one of the things that if my deal was to spend that time with Dusty and to help develop Turnbuckle, then that was a fair trade for me, and that's kind of how it worked out.
We're going to just take one more last quick break here before we kind of wrap up with. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here with Ray Glacier Lloyd on the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour. We'll be right back, folks.
This is Craig Classic, the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, and I'm on Do Your Job Wrestling Radio.
Welcome back to the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour on blogtalkradio.com/doyourjob. That was from our interview last week with NWA Junior Heavyweight Champion Craig Classic, who just successfully defended his title. You know, Ray, we have a lot of indie workers, especially out of the Florida area, who either been on our show or listened to our show. Can you give any of our upcoming wrestlers or people who do listen to the show maybe some guidance?
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you asked, because that's one of the things I really try to do. Is I've been so fortunate and so blessed to have learned from some of the top names in this business. Like I said, Lou Thesz and Dusty Rhodes. I mean, you couldn't get two better mentors than that, you know. And, I think the one thing I could say is that, you know, it's okay to want the fame and the fortune, but you can't want that first. This really has to be your passion, your undying passion, and and you got to set goals. I mean, you take your dreams, write down some goals for yourself, and set timelines on those goals. Because until you do that, your dream is always going to be just a dream. You know, everybody's got dreams, but the people who get stuff done are the people that write down goals, and then because when you write down your goals, then you make yourself accountable. You hold yourself accountable, and then and you set a timeline for where you want to go. And of course, it's not always going to work out the way you plan, but I guarantee you ain't going to get anywhere without a plan. So write it down, you know, and it's got to be your passion, because if it's not your passion, I mean, this business will break your heart over and over. It will. The entertainment business in general will, you know, but you gotta love what you're doing, and you gotta be willing to do it for free in order to get paid big money to do it, you know, and that doesn't mean you gotta do it for free forever. You know, it doesn't mean you got to do it free for long, if at all, really, but you got to be willing to. You know, like any artist, you know, it's got to be your passion. That's what's got to come out first. And people have to see that in the ring. And fans, they see it. They see if this is your passion or just something you're doing to as a hobby or to buy time or whatever. But, you know, just know going in, the odds are unbelievably stacked against you that you will ever make it to that top level. You know, that's the truth. And that's what was told to me. And like I said, I was 2 or 3 months shy of being in the business 9 years before I got my break in the WCW. Almost 9 years, you know. But I tell you, if I never would have gotten that break after those 9 years, I still would have said, you know what, and I did say at that time, I've had a pretty good run. I've met some great people along the way, and for the most part, I can say this is an experience that I would do over again if I had to, you know. But I always equate it to like a minor league baseball player who plays, say, 10 seasons in the minors, and he never, ever, ever for once makes it not even one day to the big league. That guy doesn't end up being pissed off at baseball because he didn't get a chance to go to the big leagues. He feels that that he's blessed that he had 10 years to do something that he loved to do, maybe making not much money, but something that he loved to do. He got a chance to do it, and that's what the one thing I would say to most guys is enjoy this ride, set some goals for yourself, but just understand you're up against incredible odds right now to make it to that next level. And, you know, it'd be great if everybody could experience that even for a little while, but the bottom line is that's not going to happen. And so you just have to go out there and chase your dreams realistically, get some kind of career, and let wrestling be, you know, your part-time thing. Don't try to do wrestling full-time, because you're not going to make a living doing it full-time unless you're under contract somewhere. And really, unless you're under contract with WWE, let's face it. I mean, there's so many guys in TNA that are still not making a lot of money. You know, they're getting paid per show or whatever. So, you know, like for me, I got my education degree and I was a school teacher. Taught school during the week, I wrestled on the weekends, and I have my summers off to go to Japan and wrestle. You know, so you got to have a good, solid plan to support your dream and, you know, being a wrestler. You know, that's one thing that drives me nuts is these guys who say, oh, I'm going to be a wrestler. I'm going to do it full-time. I'm going to be like the days of the old. Well, you can't. There's not any territories anymore. You know, there's not enough wrestling out there to support yourself doing it full time. You know, you gotta have a solid game plan, and basically, you have to treat it as your hobby, even though it's your passion. But, you can't just expect to try to make a living because you're not going to be able to make a living off of it. You just can't, And but, just understand that you fight incredible odds, but this is the kind of business where when your dreams come true, man, I mean, it'll exceed your wildest expectations. And I hope everybody who's listening to this who is a young wrestler who's trying to make it, I wish them all the luck in the world because you know what? You keep pushing forward and you keep living your dream. And don't let anybody tell you you can't live it because, trust me, on every corner there'll be somebody that'll tell you what you cannot do. Don't listen to them. Just keep getting back up and keep going ahead. And hopefully, things work out. But if they don't, at the end of the day, you can look back and say, you know what? I still had a pretty darn good ride.
That's great advice, and I mean, we really appreciate you sharing that because, like the ConKaiserdor said, we do have quite a few young wrestlers that we've had as guests and a regular listener. So I mean, definitely think that's great advice. Now, if you have a few more minutes, we want to kind of wrap up with this. This is a little something we like to wrap up with, a little fun thing with most of our guests. We just do a word association. We'll just kind of throw a name or a word out there. Just give us your first thing that pops to your head about either this person or that sort of thing.
I'm so bad with these, but I'll try.
I appreciate it. We'll start you off easy. I know you're good friends. We'll start you off with Diamond Dallas Page.
Intense.
All right, that's a good one. What about Eric Bischoff?
Bischoff, gosh, man, we'll have to pick my words carefully on this one. You know what? The first word that comes to mind for me is opportunity because he gave me my big opportunity. He really did. And we'll just leave it at that.
Nice.
Dusty Rhodes.
Like I said, mentor. First word that comes to mind.
Bill DeMott.
First thing that comes to mind for Bill DeMott is two words. Love him. I love Bill DeMott, man. What a great guy he is, And I'm so happy for him, to be back doing the tough enough thing again because, he's just a great guy. A great guy. He really is.
Yeah, I'm really glad they brought him back because even though he's not really been doing any work with WWE, I think he really fits that tough enough mold where he just comes across as like this hard-ass trainer, but he's got this warm side to him too. I think it really does play off well on TV. So really glad to see him back doing the whole tough enough gig. What about Booker T?
Yeah. Booker T, athletic. I mean, Booker T does some of the things that a big heavyweight guy should not be able to do, and I think the world of Booker T. I mean, he's just, I've always looked at him as just God, but after knowing him all these years, I look at some of the stuff he does, and I just go, wow, man, it's just such an incredible athlete. And a great guy, too. He really is. Great guy.
Chris Jericho.
Man, once again, I could say so many great things about Chris. How do you say it? Opportunistic. I mean, Chris is one of those guys who, he's had a lot of opportunity come his way, and he's made the most of it. He really has. He's taken opportunity and really made it work for him. And when he had to step up, he always stepped up, and it's gotten him a lot of success in this business. It really has, and I'm really happy for him.
Okay, good. This one we'll go a little newer. See what your thoughts are. John Cena.
You know what? I don't know John. It's two words, but company guy. I think he really is there for the to do what's best for WWE. I know that I think he's in a great position. He's in such a great position because he's got part of the fan base that just thinks they just want to boo him out of the building. He's got the other fan base, which is the younger kids and stuff that love him. I think that's great because the thing is, as a wrestler, your job is to go out there and get a reaction, and he's getting a reaction from everybody. Whether they like him or they don't, he's getting a reaction. And I tell you what, the one thing, the worst sound in professional wrestling is silence. And
yeah,
he gets a reaction, and I think he does his job well. I think he does.
What about Vince Russo?
Oh man, how about silence? That'll be my word on that.
Anytime there's silence, we always will play this soundbite.
Fuck you and fuck Big Red.
Sorry. that was Aaron from Eastbound and Down. Are you an Eastbound and Down fan, right?
You know, I tell you what's funny is I did watch a little bit of the first season, and I haven't really followed it because I don't have HBO here at the house because I'm just gone so much. I don't watch that much TV. But it's funny. I actually did a charity golf tournament. Gosh, this was about 7 or 8 months ago with John Rocker, and I was like, hey John, you know that you watched that Eastbound and Down? He's like, I heard about it. I was like, you know, they kind of say that character's a little loosely based on you. He's like, yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, maybe you should tune in every now and then, yeah. So, So that's I hear it's a great show. I hear it's really kind of evolved into a really good show. I mean, the first year I thought it was a little outrageous because he was Kim was this substitute teacher and he was cussing and everything. I'm like, they would just never let you get away with that because I know from being a teacher. But so I was like, But I heard I know it's got a really good fan base, and I've heard it's really evolved into a pretty darn good show.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I'll give you one more, and then I'll toss it over to my co-host to wrap up. Kurt Angle.
Kurt. Yeah, honestly, I used to work with Paige, but I use it with Kurt too. Intense, I mean, Kurt's the kind of guy. When he shows up, he knows what he needs to get done, and he's going to get it done. And I remember when I was working with my acting coach in Atlanta, getting ready to go up there to work on the film. Like I said, I just whatever reason our paths had not crossed up to that point. And the first scene that we were going to be shooting, I got my schedule, was a scene in the diner. Pretty much it's the longest dialogue exchange between my character and his character, and that was the first thing I was going to shoot with him. And so, I remember my acting coach saying, Kurt Angle, a great competitor, heck, he's an Olympic gold medalist. If you show up and you're prepared, he's gonna step up, and you guys are gonna be able to do some good work, And I was like, okay, cool. And so when we got there and we sat down to rehearse, I knew my lines backward and forth, which as an actor I always do. I mean, that's just I'm not going to show up and not know my lines. And it was a lot of dialogue. It was like 3 pages of dialogue back and forth. And Kurt, I think he'd just flown in the night before. I mean, he looked dog tired, which I could he's got an incredibly busy schedule these days, obviously. And if I tell you what, man, I mean, once he saw I was prepared, he stepped away for a couple of minutes, went over his lines. He stepped back, and man, we knocked it out, and it was great. We did some really good work together, and I think I earned his respect right off the bat because I was ready and I was ready to go, and it made him step his game up, and we did some really good work together. So yeah, I mean, and I could just see him. He just that light switch went on, and he went into that kind of intense competitive mode, and for the good. And we both worked well together. We both fed off each other, and every time we do the scene, it got better and better and better. And then from that point on, when we worked, as far as I was concerned, we did some really good work together on that shoot.
Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Legend. I mean, he's the man. I will say this. We all grew up idolizing Ric Flair. I think he's the greatest bad guy of all time. He's the cool bad guy. He's kind of always that. And as much as I love Dusty, man, I still couldn't hate Ric Flair. Even when they were battling each other. But because I think Flair is always, as a wrestling fan, he's that cool guy we all wanted to be. And I would just say that at this point, though, I'm such a big fan of Ric Flair. I really, really wish. I know that he's one of those guys that he still to this day, but to the day he takes his last breath, he will live, eat, sleep, and breathe wrestling. I just, I really wish he would step away from doing the in-ring stuff now, just because I just feel like, it's, he's built such a great legacy. I just feel like he's starting to kind of tarnish that some with still being in the ring when he doesn't really have to be, and I really, I still, like I said, like so many people do, I still idolize him, and I just, I don't want to see him, start to chip away at that legacy that he's built, about doing what we all want to do, which is stay in the ring forever. But I just think that he's got to come that time where he's got to be, to say, like I heard Evel Knievel say one time, a man's got to be professional enough to admit when he's jumped far enough, and I think, I would like to see Flair do that. He's such a great person on the microphone. They could use him that way, and he can still talk people into the arena. But I know it's Flair saying, "Hey, I want to be out there." And so I do commend him for that. But I think there's always that time when we all have to say, "Okay, maybe it's my time to to step away from that." And because it's just as you get older like that, it's a lot it's a lot easier to get injured and things like that. And he's so iconic that I definitely want to see him continue to go out on a good note rather than some other way.
That's a great segue for me for our last one, because you mentioned kind of chipping away at that legacy. Hulk Hogan.
Same thing. I think that let's face it. Hogan's life pretty much plays out in public these days. He's still the biggest name in the business. Even people that don't watch wrestling know who Hulk Hogan is. And same thing. I just think that he's got to be really careful these last years of his run here, how he handles himself. Because I think people still want to idolize him. He's Hulk Hogan, and I think that he's walking that fine line now between kind of really losing a lot of that fan base. By doing. Maybe staying out there a little too long, but I don't know his situation. I don't know if he's doing it because he wants to or feels like he has to for whatever. I'm sure he's getting paid a very nice sum of money to be there for TNA. So, I really can't say. But the same thing, I think, as a culture in wrestling, we all want to see our heroes, in that light, and we don't want to see them. We don't want to see them be human. We want to see them be larger than life. And I think that's what happens when you stay out there a little too long, way past that point where you should have. Then people see you as human, just another one of us, just another human being. And that's like I said, the wrestlers, the iconic guys like Flair and Hogan, they're larger than life. And I think if they stay out there too long, then people will start to look at them as just being mortal like everybody else, and like I said, I say that with all respect in the world for those guys. But I just think it diminishes that aura that they built all those years of just being such a superstar in whatever, obviously the wrestling arena or whatever, just as a person that people just want to meet and touch, and like I said, you tend to chip away at that level of aura when you stay long past that point of where you should step away from.
Last thing we'll ask you before we get you out of here, where can people keep up with you if you have any appearances coming up? Do you have like a website or anything like that where fans can kind of keep up with the latest happenings with you?
You know what? I kind of took a little bit of a break a while back, but I have on Facebook. I'm getting ready to revamp on Facebook like my fan page, which is just Ray Lloyd, and of course you go on there. I think it's Ray Lloyd Glacier, I think. But after all these years, I never have gotten on a website. It's been out of laziness, I guess. But I'm actually I'm on, like I said, I'm on Facebook, and I'm actually if there's anyone out there, I actually am working now with Full Sail University as an advisor / recruiter for Full Sail University here in Orlando, which is one of the top arts and media colleges in the world, really. And for anybody in the music industry or gaming industry or TV and film, and so anybody's looking to do any of that, contact Full Sail University at fullsail.edu and get some information about that, and I could definitely be your advisor if you come here to go to college or do an online degree. That's what I do now is basically help people find out what they want to do in the entertainment business and advise them and kind of help guide their careers. So yeah, I'm excited about that. It's been a really good opportunity for me so far.
Very cool, very cool. And the last thing actually is, I know I said that was the last thing, but the last thing is before we get you out of here, can we get you to do a drop for the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour?
Hello, wrestling fans. This is former WCW superstar Glacier, and you're tuning in to the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour. So stay tuned before blood runs cold on you.
I know that Lash really set the bar high. He was in full Raging Cajun gimmick. It was as if the Misfits in Action were actually rating the show as he was doing that promo. So, awesome. We really do appreciate having you on the show. You're a very nice guy. We thank you for coming on. And, not only are we fans of the WCW, legacy, but also your career as well. So we thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, man. It's been great having you on as our guest.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it as well, and I'd love to come on anytime as a regular guest. Anytime you guys would have me, just let me know when you got a slot, and I'd love to come back on.
Oh, we'd love to have you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was Ray Glacier Lloyd on the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour. Awesome interview, man. Great stuff. Good stories from the road, as well as just kind of getting into some word association with some of the big names in the wrestling business that he had the privilege and honor to work with.
Yeah, just a fantastically nice guy. And I know, we say that a lot because, we get a lot of different guys on, but it's kind of cool to see these guys behind behind the mask, so to speak. Get to talk to them a little bit as themselves. And, most of these guys, especially Glacier, fantastically nice guy, and I really enjoyed the interview. I hope everybody else enjoyed it as much as we did.
Absolutely, Guy. We definitely had some great interviews on the Do Your Job Wrestling Hour. Not 100% yet if we're going to be doing a show next week. As many of you know, maybe you don't know, I will be moving soon. It's kind of a lot of change in plans and whatnot here, trying to get back to the South Florida area. But not too sure if we're doing a show next week just due to time. Make sure you check us out on Twitter at DoYourJob_J.O.B, because if we're going to be doing a show, you're going to hear it on Twitter probably first, and then followed by Facebook and Blog Talk, all the great social networking sites that we do have out there. So, again, thank you so much for Glacier for coming on the show. We certainly do appreciate that. And I see that over in Guy that Christian won the belt tonight.
Christian has finally become the World Heavyweight Champion. I just hope they give him a nice run with it. Anybody that didn't want to know, too friggin' bad. Spoiler alert, a little bit late. But Christian has become the new World Heavyweight Champion, and I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, so am I. And Y2 Jibber Jabber had a request that I say whatnot again, so whatnot. Anywho, Christian, the new champ guy, he beat Alberto Del Rio. I guess his destiny isn't it's not happening, Guy.
Well, it makes sense. They're sending him over to Raw. They're not going to send the world title over to Raw. They sent both undercard belts to SmackDown, but here's another spoiler alert. Kofi Kingston beat Sheamus for the U.S. title to keep it on Raw. So there was a couple title changes on the program tonight. But, I think it was great for Christian to win the belt and whatnot. Yes, I did that on purpose. But, no, I think I'm very glad that he won the belt. Hopefully they give him a little bit of a run with it and don't just kind of transition into putting the belt on somebody else. So I don't know who their top heel is going to be, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how things play out. We thank everyone who listens to the archive show. The archive blows up within a few days after we release it. So we thank you for checking out the archive. I can't begin to tell you how much we appreciate that. We've had some really great interviews with Lash LaRue, with Pete Gass, Lanny Poffo, Axel Rotten, Gilbert. I mean, the list goes on. So and some great indie talent as well, especially in Florida. There are some great promotions out there like Coastal Championship Wrestling, Future of Wrestling, FOW, as well as, promotions here like MCW, Championship. There's some really great promotions out there. So there's so many wrestlers out there who are kind of paying their dues and whatnot. And, without your support, it's kind of tough for them to get their break and to not only make some money but also get their name out there.
Absolutely. You're not going to find a better value if you're a wrestling fan than some of these local shows. A lot of them, your ticket price is $10, $15, but you go, you get a great show, and you get to see the next generation because you never know which of these guys is going to turn up on TNA or even an FCW, be the next guy in WWE. I mean, look at MVP. He was Antonio Banks down here when we were going to local shows. You never know.
That's true, bud. You never know. Plus, also when you go to an indie show or something, local in your area, a lot of times you may see someone who you were a fan of in WWE or TNA or WCW or even ECW, who maybe have been away from the spotlight for a little while. You get that real intimate setting where you can get like a ringside seat, like I said, something like $15 to $25, where you're right there. You feel like you're part of the show. And speaking of which, Guy, I did get floor-level seats, row L, for WWE Raw here in Baltimore in June 20th. Now, I'm not sure yet if the ConKaiserdor is going to be Raw just yet, because if I move down before that, I'm going to be bummed, Guy, because then I have to sell those tickets. And, man, those are some good – that's probably the best seats I'd ever have for a WWE event.
I don't know. We had pretty good seats when we went to Raw down here, if you remember. We had actually real good seats. Those were when you and I went down here at the Bank Atlantic Center, those were the best seats I've ever had once my wife got us. Hopefully you get to go. It should be a good show. I wanted to go tomorrow, but it's all the way down in Miami. It's kind of a hike, especially when I'm up at the butt crack of dawn for work. So
you're not a very good broadcast journalist, guy. You should be there, live, with a microphone in hand, getting interviews on the spot.
Yeah, if Vince McMahon wants to give me media credentials and free tickets and media credentials, I'll be happy to do so.
I don't think that's going to happen, guy. I don't think they have a place in the truck for you.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Right, we'll definitely see. But we thank everybody for listening tonight. We certainly do appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who's in the chat room. We do appreciate you being in there, asking your questions, and just kind of keeping things live in there. And again, don't forget, keep updates with us because you don't know when we're coming back right now. We hope we'll be back soon. We're going to be working on those details. But in the meantime, if you're just kind of getting into our show, make sure you check out some of our archive interviews, really some great stuff. So for the ConKaiserdor, which is I, and Old School Avis Hathaway, which is he, we say goodnight, and thank you for listening to the show. We appreciate it, and if I can leave you one last thing, it is let's go Heat. Good night, everybody.
Good night.